Hey everyone, this is Monica Castaneda, and recently I have been talking to you about how important it is that you have dinner with your family, sitting at the dining table, and that you don't just see dinner as an opportunity to eat delicious and healthy foods, but also as an opportunity to connect with your family members. So today I want to share with you 4 tips on how you can have great conversations with your family members. So, we have a family of 4 and 2 cats, 4 people, 2 cats. And our boys are 3 years apart. When our kids were probably either 5 and 2 or 6 and 3, until that time, we just thought our younger kid, he was just kind of quiet and he didn't want to participate in a lot of conversations. And we've always had really animated conversations, but it was mostly between my husband, my older son, and me. And so one time, like our little one, he was trying to interject, and then he says, "Oh, I'm never going to get to talk." And that's when we learned that he really wanted to participate in the conversation, that he wanted to be part of the excitement at the dining table. But he was still too little to put his thoughts together quickly enough to participate in the conversation as it was. And so he said, "Oh, I'm never going to get a chance to talk." And then we're like, "No, okay, go on, go on. We'll make space for you. Say what you wanted to say." And then he goes like, he says, "Oh, I forgot." And it was the cutest thing. He was so tiny. Our kids are bilingual. They speak English and Spanish, and they spoke later. So kids that learn one language, they usually speak around a year old. Kids that learn 2 languages usually speak around 2 years old. And kids that speak 3 languages usually speak around 3 years old. Interesting how that works, right? And so our kids are both boys. They started speaking fluently between 2 and 3 years old. And so what we learn from that is to always make space for everybody in our family to have room to talk, to have room to interject, and to adapt to the needs and the brain speed of the little one, right? And so from then on, we have always made sure that we create space for every family member to express themselves. This may be really hard for some people, like if you're an extrovert and you have another family that's an extrovert, it may be likely that conversations are dominated by the 2 of you. And so make room for every family member to express themselves. That's the first tip. The second tip is decide what is off limits to talk about at the table. So some topics of conversation are going to do away with your appetite, and some topics of conversation are going to be upsetting for some family members. In our family, we don't believe in teasing. We never tease each other. But on families where you tease each other, you need to figure out what kind of teasing is okay at the table and what kind of teasing just makes the person miserable, right? Now, I have a husband that is a chiropractor and a son that wants to be a medical doctor. And so that means that they are very comfortable talking about blood and anatomy and cuts and all sorts of things that could go wrong with the human body. Well, I am not, right? So at some point I had to tell them, okay, medical conversation is off limits. We can't be talking about medical conditions at the table. So that is number 3, decide what is off limits at the table. What are topics of conversation that would be very upsetting for any members of your family? Number 3 is to make sure the conversation is interesting for everybody involved. So people who are very dominant and people who are very extroverted, again, they might just start talking about something that is really fascinating to them, and they may not notice that other people are put off by that. So make sure that the conversation is okay for everybody. So for example, one thing that happened in our household is this. I don't play video games. I have never played video games, maybe one occasion or 2, but I've never been into video games. And my husband has. And so the children, they want to talk about video games. My husband can follow, I can't follow because I know nothing about it, right? So we have had to restrict how much we talk about video games at the dinner table. And tip number 4 is don't put people down. When you have kids, sometimes they'll say things that are really outrageous, and our kids would actually frame it like this. They would say things like, Mama, I have finally figured out how this works. And then they would go on to say something really outlandish. And so what you should never do at the dinner table is to tell people, oh, that's stupid. Oh, that's just rubbish. You are wrong. Don't put people down. Say things in a way that the person can understand that what they said was incorrect in a way that encourages them to do better, right? And so, for example, you could say, I know you have given that thought, but have you considered this other aspect? Or let's take a look at what you just said and see if it matches reality, right? Or, well, that may be true in some cases, but maybe it's not true in all cases. And that can be an opening for you to have amazing conversations with your kids. And that is amazing conversations at the dining table is one of the things that makes a family strong. So I really want to encourage you to do that. So the summary, right? First, create space for every family member to be able to talk. Number 2, decide what is off limits as dinner conversation. Number 3, make sure the conversations are interesting to all the people involved. And number 4, don't put people or their ideas down. And I hope that helps you. Of course, in order to have awesome family dinners, conversation is not enough. You also need to have a beautiful dining room. You need to have good feng shui. And you also need to have healthy, delicious foods. Now, see you next time.